Hey everybody, in this video we are going to study about ground tissue system. In the previous video we have already covered the epidermal tissue system. The ground tissue system in the tissue system is the fundamental tissue system. Why it's the fundamental tissue system? Because this ground tissue is the main bulk of the plant body. The maximum cells are present in ground tissue system, which comprises of parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. They are present in huge amount in ground tissue system. That's why it's the fundamental tissue system in plant body. Talking about its zonations, so we have major three zones of ground tissue systems which is present in all dicot stem and all roots. तो जितनी भी dicot stems होती हैं और जितनी भी roots हैं monocot root, dicot root, they are having this ground tissue. However, monocot stem lacks ground tissue. We have three zones, that is cortex, pericycle and pith in the ground tissue system present in dicot stem and roots. Talking about cortex, in cortex there are further three subzones below epidermis, that is hypodermis, general cortex and endodermis. These are the three subzones. Now let's talk in detail about cortex and its regions or subzones. The very first one is hypodermis. It is the outermost portion of cortex in stem. I'm talking about the stem. So it's the outermost portion of cortex in stem below epidermis, and hypodermis is absent in roots. It's completely absent in roots. Either it's monocot root, dicot root, you will not find hypodermis. It can be single or multi-layered, and since hypodermis is present in stem, so in dicot stem it is in of collenchymatous nature, which means living mechanical tissue, and in case of monocot stem the hypodermis is sclerenchymatous in nature, which is dead mechanical tissue. Hence the main function is protective in nature, right? And in case of dicot stem, which is collenchymatous, it may also perform photosynthesis. So it is on and all is a concept of stem and it's absent in roots. So that's important to note down. The second subzone in cortex is the general cortex. Now this general cortex, we have two positions in case of stem and roots. In case of stem, the general cortex is next to hypodermis as we have seen, but in case of roots it's next to epidermis, since in roots there is no hypodermis. The general cortex can be few to many layered in thickness. Also, it's generally parenchymatous in nature, where there are thin cells are present, intercellular spaces can be present or absent. In young stem, they might possess chloroplast, which means they can perform photosynthesis as well. On the other hand, the general cortex provides mechanical support, right? And it helps in photosynthesis in young leaves and stem. It also can store food material. So these are the functions of general cortex, which is present next to hypodermis in stem and next to epidermis in roots. The last subzone of cortex is endodermis. This is the innermost layer of the cortex and it is inner to the endodermis. The inner to the endodermis is steel. यानी कि एंडोडर्मिस के नीचे स्टील आता है और स्टील क्या होता है? इट कंप्राइजेज बेसिकली पेरिसाइकिल, वेस्कुलर बंडल्स एंड पिथ. तो पेरिसाइकिल, वेस्कुलर बंडल और पिथ को स्टील बोलते हैं. तो स्टील को कवर करने वाला है एंडोडर्मिस. सो बेसिकली दिस एंडोडर्मिस इज अ बॉर्डर बिटवीन जनरल कॉर्टेक्स एंड स्टील. तो स्टील और जनरल कॉर्टेक्स के बीच में आता है एंडोडर्मिस. What's the characteristic of endodermis? The endodermis is basically a single layered, compactly arranged cells, living cells, Endodermis is single layered of compactly arranged cells. Now, what are the shape of these cells? You will find that the shape of the cells are barrel shaped, or we can say drum, or large cylindrical or oval shape. तो इस तरह की शेप्स जो है एंडोडर्मिस के सेल्स की देखने को मिल सकती हैं. Third thing is it's a living cell that might also contain starch grains, right? It's a living cell that may contain starch grain in case of dicot stem. So it's called as starch sheath. It's called as starchy sheath or starch sheath in case of dicot stem, where this endodermis stores starch grain. The endodermis is completely absent in monocot stem. As I have told you, there is no ground tissue in monocot stem. Here, the another concept of Casparian strip comes, where it's a thickened band in the wall of the endodermis that is called as Casparian strip. The Casparian strip is a thickened band present in the walls of endodermis. It was first discovered by Caspary. The Casparian strip is named after his discovery, and this Casparian strip is having the deposition of waxy material which is suberin. So suberin is the waxy material which makes cell suberized, and hence the endodermis is impervious to water. So there is no translocation of water because of Casparian strip present in endodermis, right? There is no translocation of water because it's having suberin coating. However, there are another kind of cells that are present in Casparian strips are passage cells. These are few cells that are not having the Casparian strip. So these are certain cells that helps in the water movement. So you need to remember the concept of endodermis, Casparian strip and passage cells. Now the distinct endodermis, a very prominent endodermis can be observed in the roots of all the plants, but in stem it's not very distinct. In dicot stem it's not very distinct. Why? Because it's contain starchy sheath, right? So in dicot stem it's not very clearly distinct. So this is the first zone of the ground tissue system, that is cortex, where we studied the hypodermis, general cortex and endodermis. Now we are going to study pericycle. The pericycle is the outermost portion of the stele. I told you stele is the region which comprises of pericycle, vascular bundle and pith. So stele में जो outermost portion है वो pericycle है. It's thin-walled parenchymatous in case of roots, and it's thick-walled sclerenchymatous in stem. It may be single or multi-layered, and it may be present in the form of patches as well. It is absolutely absent in monocot stem, as monocot stem is lacking ground tissue system. So in monocot stem there is no endodermis, no pericycle, no pith. ठीक, and the pericycle is parenchymatous living in case of roots, and it's dead mechanical in case of stem. This is important to note. We will find the reason as well. So the function of pericycle is to provide mechanical support and storage organ when it's parenchymatous in nature. Now in dicot roots, the pericycle is parenchymatous, which means it's living. It helps to undergo secondary growth. The pericycle becomes meristematic by the process of dedifferentiation, right? The cells again become meristematic. The parenchymatous cells become again meristematic and helps in the development of a cambium that further helps in the secondary growth of roots. So pericycle helps in secondary growth of dicot roots, and it also gave rise to lateral roots. This is the reason why pericycle is parenchymatous in dicot roots. Now the last zone in ground tissue system is pith. The central most portion is pith. It's also called as medulla, which can be parenchymatous. It is having the intercellular space that can be present, and it occupies the central part of a plant. The pith is present in dicot stem, dicot root, monocot root. It is absolutely absent in monocot stem. Why it's absent in monocot stem? Because monocot stem is lacking the ground tissue system. We have told this thing so many times. But the pith can be sometimes sclerenchymatous also, and this thing is present in family that is Compositae. So Compositae family is having sclerenchymatous pith. ठीक, this is about the ground tissue system, which comprises of cortex, pericycle, pith. The pith, or we can say medullary rays, there are certain rays that you can see in the diagram that are the extensions of pith. In most of the dicots, the peripheral region of the pith के जो peripheral region के जो cells हैं, they extend between the vascular bundle and they are in contact with the pericycle. तो पेरिसाइकिल के साथ कांटेक्ट में होते हैं और एक्सटेंड करते हैं पिथ के पेरिफेरल पोर्शन से, यानी कि आखिरी वाले सेल से. Now these extensions, they appear like rays, so we call them as pith rays or medullary rays. तो इनको कुछ भी बोला जा सकता है. They basically help in lateral translocation. अपवर्ड ट्रांसलोकेशन तो हो जाती है, डाउनवर्ड भी हो जाती है, पर साइड वाइज लेटरल ट्रांसलोकेशन जो है वो ये पिथ रेज और मेडुलरी रेज करवाते हैं थ्रू पिथ. नाउ दिस ग्राउंड टिश्यू सिस्टम इज ए concept where we have cortex, pericycle, pith in case of roots and stems, but in case of leaves we have mesophyll, that is the ground tissue of leaves. So the cortex and pith are not present in case of leaves. It's mesophyll that act as the ground tissue system. So this is all about the ground tissue system that comprises of epidermal tissue system, and then we have pericycle, and then we have pith. In the epidermal tissue system, it's actually the cortex. I have written it wrong. It's the cortex, pericycle, pith that comprises of the ground tissue system. So I hope that you like this video, and if you did, then please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment. Thank you so much.